I think we're good as hell to go.
All right, great. This is Hannibal here, and I am with the one and only WWE, Portland, NWA, WCW, AWA, maybe not NWA, but maybe versions of NWA. But John the Berzerker Nord should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. Not quite there yet. How are you doing?
Well, thanks for saying that. Actually, I was kind of what do you call it? Not so much a wrestler as I was a commodity gimmick or something, you know. And so I think guys like me get a slower thing to get in the Hall of Fame. But I know the one thing I had going for me is Vince always really liked me. And now that he's really not in it, I think that cuts my chances down.
Apparently, the executives have started talking to him again, though. Now they have.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, one of the executives, Mark Shapiro, had a business breakfast with him the other day. So maybe the heat is starting to die down. But I know one guy that was in charge of the Hall of Fame selections that didn't get along with you was Johnny Ace.
God, I know.
Yeah, so maybe it's a good thing he's gone.
Big time. He's a frickin' weasel. He's a frickin' in Japan. He was always just being a Bogart with Stan Hansen, and Stan I was partner with for about 5 tours, and he I remember bringing a movie on the bus, and it was Shane. And, that's like a movie nobody wants to watch except me and Stan. And he goes, "Oh, you brought that sucking the boss's ass, huh?" I said, I just remembered that. So literally that night, I hit him in the head with one of those big chairs, not just a folding chair. It had like rolled steel, big steel rollers on it. And I hit him, and he was just pissed and cocked me the rest of the tour. I just walked by him and go, "Hi, suck ass."
I heard you say maybe it was after that incident that you heard him talk without the gravelly voice, and you think that whole voice is a work.
It for sure is. Well, actually, Brad Reagan's, there you go. There's a guy that it's like we're at the Hard Rock Cafe and downtown Tokyo, and man, I just and Brad goes, "Wow, you got like a bad cough, or you got what's going?" "Oh no, it's just being on the road all these years." "You mean 2 years?" And Brad, we just gave him the hardest time. But yeah, so when I did see him after that, I could do that too, man. So yeah.
That's funny. Do you think it's true, or do you think that this person's making it up, that Vince took a crap on that woman and then made him have sex with her with all the crap on her? Because that's the big headline from that whole story. Could you see him doing that?
You know what? I'll answer that, but let me ask you this. Do you believe Brock Lesnar was there?
Apparently, I don't think Brock Lesnar was there. He apparently exchanged some text messages with her, but to me, it's like he could have any girl he wants. Why would he want Vince McMahon's?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it was the girl extorting the story to be 666, so the money went up. Vince ain't like that. Geez, no matter how weird Vince McMahon is, he's still an Irish Catholic family man. Is he weird? Totally. Real weird. But he ain't weird that way. He would have been busted when he was 22 years old if he was weird that way. He didn't have to wait till he was 75 or whatever. So
And
I don't think
there's holes in her story too. Like she was engaged during this whole time, living in the same multi-millionaire apartment complex as Vince. So it's not like she was.
Was she?
Oh yeah, she just lived a few floors down.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
It was a former Donald Trump building. So
Really?
it's like she wasn't poor.
Really?
You couldn't be poor living in this place.
I didn't know that. How was she making her money?
I don't exactly know, but he eventually hired her. He heard that she needed a job and I guess hired her and
in the office.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only thing I will tell you again is I know Vince to be weird, but I also know him that listen, he's got two, kids. When you got kids and a straight-laced wife, they're not gonna let you be very weird. They're just gonna look at you like, Dad, you got, and as far as taking a shit, he's the only way he could have done that because see, I've got the ability to shit and then suck it back in. So in case I can change my mind, But anyways, no, I think just Vince is she's definitely trying to extort.
Yeah, I think he'll be back. They've already announced he's going to be opening an entertainment company. He is a billionaire. Do you think he'll get back into wrestling? Because if you look at his entertainment ventures like the WBF, the XFL, his boxing stuff, it all failed.
Yeah.
So he must be going back into wrestling.
I think he's going to be like driving his Mercedes around town going, let me see, if I go home, I argue with the wife. The kids got their lives. What am I going to do? Let me see, to stop at the Special K, gas station, and then old timers were all the same. You start getting bored. And yeah, I do think he's going to be back in it. Just out of sheer boredom. Shit.
Yeah. I mean, this guy's a workaholic, so he's got to be doing something all the time.
He's a workaholic anyways. And I hoped he would. I always hoped he'd come back and do something, have some kind of program or talk show or ring show with all the old timers that are left and try to get guys like literally, The Rock. And I don't know who he gets to wrestle, but I know that I still think a Johnny Carson talk show would be great, but maybe he's too old.
A lot of people like me would rather watch shoot interviews with you at old matches than the current wrestling because it just looks so choreographed now and the moves look very cooperative. I mean, Brock Lesnar, I guess Brock is getting paid like $12 million just to sit at home because they haven't released him. But like he was the only one of the more believable. But for like fans like me that were fans of you and Brody and people of that era, we don't like the current product.
Yeah, I hear exactly what you just said. I hear it left and right. That exact same thing. And like Brock, I mean, he turned the whole world on its ear, UFC and how we looked and all that. And he is getting paid $12 million to sit at home. That is correct. Because I talk to Brad Rance probably every day, and he's very close with Brock. And Brock kind of looks out for Brad because sometimes Brad don't take too good care of himself. And anyways, with that being the case, is Brock really doesn't care too much about wrestling, period. But he was the last guy where you just, here comes Brock. What's he gonna do? You never knew what he was gonna do. That was the great thing about Lesnar. All of a sudden he's driving a tractor to the ring, and they don't got guys like that. Like do you remember Von Wagner, Wayne Bloom's kid?
Yeah, he just got released, I think, not too
Yeah,
long
he
ago,
got
right?
broomed, as we call it in the car business. I'm not laughing, Wayne, if you're watching this. Anyways, uh, he just, but this is, well, how he got in was Brock Lesnar, and then or through Brad to Brock. Brock gave it the magic touch, and otherwise he would have never in a million years gotten in. And I remember Brock on the phone with Brad, and I was on the three-way, and he says, and Brock goes, "Is there something wrong with that kid?" You know, and me and Brad laughed, and no, nothing personal on Wayne, but I just like the Cal Bloom is. I don't think he just is. He just don't have that go crazy type deal, and but I'll tell you what, he never had to once travel. He lived in Orlando. He made he had a hell of a contract his last year. I think it was for 350. And then his first years, I'm sure he was making 152. So he's got to bank some money, never fly overseas, never fly anywhere, never had to drive anywhere. And then you still got you know, trying to cop, oh, he got fired. That's too bad. I don't feel sorry for him at all. He had the easiest 5 years you could ever have and make a lot of money. No $100 nights, no nothing. Here you go. And I love Cal. I've known him since he's been a little kid, and I love the guy. But I don't bullshit Wayne. I said, shit, you what a scam you guys got, man. You got to sock about 400 grand in the bank, and then you want me to feel sorry for you that you freaking got fired. To hell with that.
Yeah, not only $100 nights, but I know you've probably experienced it because I have. But you drive to a town that's 3 hours away, then the promoter tries to stiff you on the pay.
Yeah. And a lot of times, like I know, like Jake Roberts was pretty known for that. Hey man, I need to get my pay first, you know. And Jake, of course, I told you that Jake's story up in Maple Grove, Minnesota, didn't I? But anyways,
I don't think you did.
did I?
May have been another one.
This one's in the vaults of being, and it's 100% true. 100%. Ask the grappler; he was there. So my brother is for Maple Grove High School, real hoity-toity, high buck high school in Minnesota, and his son was a senior on the wrestling team. They wanted to really do something cool, so they said, let's have pro wrestling matches in the auditorium. Well, he says, who can you get? I said, I can get Jake Roberts. Now, this is 1999, so Jake's on his butt. He ain't making no money anyways, you know. So
he was still doing religion then, wasn't he, going around to churches at that point?
Was he?
Yeah.
Was he? That's another scam. Anyways, God forbid me. Anyways, but so the grappler, I knew I wanted to bring Lenny in, and just because he's my best buddy, and I said, Lenny, I'll give you $500. That my brother would have spent anything. He didn't care. He's one of them guys. He just doesn't give a shit about money. Anyway, so I said, I'll get you 500 and get you a nice hotel, and I did all that. But I'll never forget, Jake flies in. We meet him at Applebee's in Maple Grove. And Jake, how you doing? And I promised him 1,000, you know, and which was a good payoff back in 1999. And he goes, hey, man, I need the money first before we go any farther, man. I says, you are something else, Jake. I says, here's the G. So I gave him the G. Now the grappler's with me. So and then what does Jake do? Next.
Disappears.
Bingo. Hold your cards. We got a bingo. So he goes down to the hood, gets some real big rocks of crack, some real big head bangers. And he came back to Maple Grove so high. And I'm like, oh my God. You know, he's got his red pants and his cowboy boots. And I knew at least Lenny was going to be able to have a match, somewhat of a match, because he was so experienced, you know. So they're bumping around. Jake all of a sudden starts getting, and everybody, you got kids just laugh. Grown-ups are laughing so hard. They know he's high and they know he's really throwing up. It's not part of the show. And Jake takes off his boot and starts throwing up in his boot. And the grappler's bouncing around, holding out this barf on Lenny. And long story short, he got back to the locker room, and to see it on film, because they did film it. I don't know. I doubt if anybody still got the film, but you wouldn't even believe how
I would pay good money for that if you could track it down.
You won't even believe how horrifically ugly it was. It was the biggest shit show, barf show, and everybody knew. Everybody knew, and they were laughing so hard. I had and then that same match, I advertised Curt Hennig stopping over. So Curt gets all paranoid, like, geez, John's using my name. He's making all this money. So I says, Curt, really, you're worried about me using your name? Come on, lighten up. His wife's there, way in the back, spying on me like I'm making all this money on the Hennig name. And I mean, me and Curt go up there. I says, Curt, come on, good God. Who do you think you are? You know, freaking, the president of the United States. I says, I just threw you on there to try to get these kids more money for their program. And so he got straightened out then. So then we always laughed about it. But, that's the nature of Curt. He's kind of a paranoid dude to anybody. Curt's like, that son of a bitch is using my name. That ain't gonna, that fucker. I'm going to go in there and tell him I'm going to hit him. Well, Curt would never punch nobody, ever. He's just not a fighter. Never was. But anyway, so that was always really funny. So the whole thing being like this was just, Brad was there. Dennis Kozlowski, who was an Olympian, was doing the play-by-play with me. And he's got the mic and he's looking at me and going, is this part of the show? I says, no, it's not. This is the real show. So it was unbelievable. And it's so true, the whole thing.
I think Jake re-signed with AEW after doing almost nothing with them for 5 years back in March, and he's made one appearance since March. Wouldn't you love one of those contracts?
Oh, my God. How does it happen? The guy's a mark for Jake, and that's all it is. And he works. When I talk to him, Jake's a sober guy. The sober guys kind of check. He heard I wasn't doing well or something, and I'm like, God, why is Jake calling me? I'm thinking, what, as he's talking, and then it dawned on me, oh, he's seeing how my drinking is doing, seeing if I'm gonna kill myself drinking or something. And I don't even hardly drink. But the bottom line is so he called me and he says, John, this guy is a mark for me. He goes, the worst I gotta do is make one appearance a month. Now, like you said, it's been 6 months or whatever.
Yeah, one appearance since March.
Yeah, and he's getting whatever, but it's just free money, and good for Jake, because I'll tell you what I like about Jake is he's not cheap. At least when you're out with him, he throws it around if he's got it, you know. But yeah, I know he took the grappler fishing and spent a good chunk of money, and he didn't even bat an eye. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy for him because, it's easier to stay sober when you're in that kind of situation, because when you do those crappy independent shows, sometimes you want to get drunk because it's so depressing.
Big time. You just want to go, yeah, you what I call the short serenity prayer. You just say, fuck it, and then you go get drunk, but it's because of money. And while he's back with Cheryl, and I seen them guys when me and Justin were out at California last year, and or was it this year?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, and seen him and Cheryl, and I said, remember when me and Jane, my wife, I was married for 25 years, and remember when Cheryl and you and we went over to Jake's and Cheryl's townhouse in Baton Rouge, or was it in where they did TV? I don't know. Anyways, but Mid-South, and me and my wife were laughing because we're not pot people, we're not pot smokers. And Jake and Cheryl are eating their steak going, this is really good. And they were so high, they couldn't hardly chew their steak. And me and my wife are looking at each other laughing. And I think that was the same night or the night before we wrestled at the Dome against the Snowman and Ali in his corner.
Very good. There's a fan on here that wants to know the first car you ever owned. I know you're a big car guy.
Love cars. A 65 Plymouth Fury with a 318, 50,000 actual miles. My dad got it to me for $100. The whole passenger side was caved in, but the rest of it was perfect. And all of us Robinsdale guys would pile in there and just go and see how much trouble we could get in. You could get 6, 7 guys in it. So, yep.
Who was with your group at Robinsdale? Like what era were you in? Because I know
you
a lot
mean
of
high school?
Yeah.
77.
77.
Here's who I graduated with was Nikita Koloff. He thinks that's his name, but his name's Scott Simpson. And then there's I shouldn't say, if you group them, so you got to go 76 and 78. There's 3 years, 76, 77, 78. 76, you had Brady Boone. 78, you had Barry Darso. You had Tom Zink, my year. You had, there's just I can't even think of the guys. But it was always cool.
Were the Road Warriors
Kurt
in
Hennig.
Yeah, Kurt Hennig. What about Rick Rude?
Rude was our wide receiver on our football team, but Hagstrand and Norton were at the high school next to us. They were a little more in the hood, and we were more in just the suburb. And one night at Robinsdale McDonald's, Henning, the window was down with Hagstrand's car, and Norton was driving, and Kurt popped him through the window like that, Mike, and hit him like that. Well, Mike, I'm gonna fucking kill him. And Kurt took off because that's what Kurt does. He, anywhere from taking a case of beer to stealing a cribbage board to anything. That's Kurt. That's what he did. He ran. He would take off just running. Kurt was fast too, so you weren't going to catch him. So Hannibal, Monday morning now at school, here they thought the guy that punched Hawk was me. And because all they seen was a sandy brown-haired tall guy, boom. And so they come in the school. This is how nuts Scotty and Mike are. They came in the school looking to kick my ass. And my principal was, oh, John, there's a couple guys in the hallway that I don't think they're here to say hi, just say hi to you or something like that. I says, what? And I know who they were. I mean, I knew them since maybe 9th grade, them guys. And, you know, I would have, you know, started fighting both of them to every freaking ounce of energy I had in me. But it never got to that. So, and thank God. But the main thing is that's just the kind of shit that happened. That's actually a Kurt Hennig story more than anything else.
Was it true? I know you're very honest about who's tough and who isn't tough.
Yeah.
Is it true Rick Rude was the toughest of the Robinsdale guys?
Fuck no. Let me straighten everybody out on this shit. Rick had legs like a robin bird. You know, first of all, you can't have legs that skinny and be the toughest. Now, if you're gonna fight, if the whoever's gonna win, it's the guy who usually gets the first 2 really good punches in. And then the guy's so wobbly and dizzy, you're probably going to win the fight. And Rick was good at that because he'd always throw the first punch. But we talk about this once in a while, and we've got the Robinsdale guys we get together that were actually a few of them were in Brad's camp with me, but they just didn't stay in it, and they weren't. But and they say the same thing about Rick. And I love Rick, and he's but the legend's way off compared to what it is. Now, would I would have wanted to get punched by him? God no. You know, he hit like a mule, just like Mike Hakestrand. Mike hit like a mule. But overall toughness, no, he was way down the ladder.
Who would have gotten into the most high school fights out of that crew?
Out of that group, definitely not Darso. Probably about the guys you would think. I'd say Hakestrand was pretty good at finding trouble. The trouble seemed to find me pretty good, but Simpson, no, Scott wasn't a fighter. You had to be a partier, you know, to get in a lot of fights usually. And you know, the thing about being in Robinsdale them years, we had one thing on our mind all the time. That was going to see how hammered we could get Friday night, period.
Yeah, and I think I heard you say, and I do believe this, that you're like 112-0 in street fights.
I just say that because it's kind of funny.
Well, I've been attacked like probably 200 times in all my years bouncing. I've survived all of them.
Nice.
But I know what it's like at the bars. It's easy to get attacked. Was it mostly people picking fights with you because you were a wrestler or being a bouncer? Would you actually start fights?
Well, no, hell no. I was not a fight starter, but a lot of times you would get tough guys that heard about Nord or Henning or any of us guys. And, you know, you get a guy like that was in a boxing club and then would kind of get an attitude towards one of us guys because they knew they were going to be able to outbox us, you know? So, but then as far as just wrestling, if you know, Hannibal, if you got the actual wrestling basics from 9th grade to senior, and even if you don't win state, you're going to have a big edge over the guy you're fighting. Well, Rick Rude never had no wrestling skills. Mike Hakestrand had no wrestling skills. Scotty Norton, who I love, and he was a freak of nature. He could have played pro football easy, but he didn't have the head. And what were we just talking about?
The wrestling skills in street fights.
Yeah, Scotty never went out for wrestling. You got to actually go, you know that. And that gives you a big edge. So,
yeah, especially when the guy's drunk.
Exactly. And you being a bouncer, you know exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, amateur wrestling has helped me more than anything in bouncing because you can just control people easily.
Exactly.
And you can't defend a double leg if you've never amateur wrestled.
That's right. And all you got to know is the basics. It's like, I'm not just going to step in and grab your head like this. And all you got to do is shift your body and trip you, and that's all you need. And then you get on top and you start wailing. But funny is Scotty Norton, who is I love him to death. Now Scotty's one of these guys who just seems to fall into these freaking problems. Like you heard in Japan, that one guy knocking him out, right?
I haven't heard that, but there was another story that I'm going to ask you about after you say that. Somebody said on here about Scott.
Well, Scotty, Ventura's gym was on 43rd and Lindale, Minneapolis. Right across the street was a bar called Waldo's, hardcore type drinking pool room bar. Well, Scotty was huge at the time. He was the world arm wrestling champ. Bouncing there. I take that back. He might not have been yet, but he was close. And he was a freak. And he was bouncing. And Scotty's not a mean guy, but we all got that macho crap in us. And I got a buddy of mine who's he's older than me by 4 years and knows his whole family. He's from Robinsdale. And he is just one of them guys you don't want to mess with. He's tougher than shit. Like 6 feet, 180, and just can go. But he punched Scotty, and Scotty went down, got knocked out, lost a tooth, the whole thing. He got knocked out, lost the tooth, period. So he seems to always be in that shit.
Maybe you can confirm this because Ernest the Cat Miller, who I'm sure you know from WCW, said he was in a confrontation with Scott Norton in WCW and Scott backed down. Do you know if there's any truth to that?
Yeah, I think there might be a little. I don't know. For guys, it's just such a horseshit word, back down, because what does it mean? There's guys that back down because it ain't worth it, and it just is stupid. And besides that, they're getting paid $350 a year, and they don't want to. Why touch that money? I'm getting fired, and now the worst thing about fighting in locker rooms or hotels or anything with other wrestlers, you're going to get quoted as hard to work with. And if you're hard to work with, back then, if the word got out, you were hard to work with. Well, you were never going to get a run with Hogan. You're never going to get a run with, all the top guys because you're hard to work with. So I'd say it's 50-50 on that.
I heard Kevin Nash say recently one of his regrets was that he didn't beat up Bill Watts. I know you know Bill Watts and you know Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
Who would win that fight if they had fought in WCW around 92 when Kevin says he regrets not fighting him?
Just because of pure age, Nash, Kevin, I'm sure can hit pretty good. And Bill was kind of a blowhard, but again, he had that amateur wrestling enough to know that you're not, but my opinion is if Nash hit him once, Watts would probably be on rollerblades going backwards and falling down on his back, and it would be over pretty quick.
Did you have much interaction with Terry Taylor in Mid-South?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, I knew Terry. I worked with him. I was real green, you know. But Terry, back then, he was a mega freaking ego. Still does probably, but I like him. He's one of the guys with a huge ego that you like anyways. But Terry, they were doing any promotion at all possible, and his was have it. You win a date with Terry Taylor night. You know, they had a few of them I remember, and I remember asking Terry, "Did you really go out on a date?" "Yeah, man. Shit, I told him what girl to pick." I says, "How did it go?" He goes, "How do you think, man? It's me." You know, or something. But yeah, he was. The only thing that I have the hardest time with is like, I just look at some guys that's just like, you just don't look like you could hurt a fly. And then I'm in there taking clotheslines from you. What? You know? So.
Is it true he was a partier of like the more hardcore stuff too back in the day?
As far as
Like the white stuff as
yeah, the
well.
using.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
Not
actually
that anyone wasn't back then. Like probably 90% did it here and there.
yeah. No, he did bowl, and that it's a term not used very often, but I still say it every day almost. I'm like, what was funny is it'd be just hilarious in the locker room, and Vince would walk by, and I remember a couple of times I went, and these guys are just breaking up, you know. I'm acting like I'm all jonesed up on coke, you know, and fuck no, I'm not. Yeah, I after the matches and some time off, yeah. The amount of guys that sat at these hotel room tables and did blow are almost every one of them, and that goes for all the Bret Hart, never seen Owen do it, and I would bet anything he never did. But anywhere from Bret to, well, of course, Jimmy Neidhart, God bless his soul. Neidhart would be right up there. I would be, of course, and even Darso, Barry and Bill Eadie, never seen him. Kurt, absolutely the first one besides me, maybe. And what was funny, our big saying, and I just loved it, is everybody's at the hotel room table, we're drinking, now we're drunk. Now we got to get to the next level. So we send somebody out to go get blow. So we send Neidhart out. And this was Jim's tag line. I think it came from Porky's. But all of a sudden, Neidhart would come back and he'd go, we've got Bush. We've got Bush. And if I remember right, wasn't that from Porky's? They're looking in the
I haven't
hole.
seen it for many years, but very likely.
But they're looking in the hole in the showers. And
going, yeah. And then the guy.
We've got
I
Bush.
remember that.
So we use that all the time. I still say it just out of habit. I go, we've got Bush. It can mean money. It can mean blow. It can mean anything, you know. So it's just funny. I wish Kurt was around to still clown around and that, but I still say it to Brad and Darso, not so much. Barry is so, him and Bill, they're booked every stinking weekend, aren't they?
Yeah, they're doing great.
They really are. And it couldn't happen to two better guys. Except Bill's a little.
They're two of the nicest. But I got to ask you, what is the most, I'm sure you're a big guy and you developed a tolerance. What is the most blow you ever consumed?
Me?
At one time, like in one night? Would it be 7 grams? Would it be more than that?
me and Hawk, after one of the big shows, we both failed the piss test. So we know we're getting 6 weeks off. You got George the Animal Steel, and it was in London. So it's at Wembley Arena outside. It was the biggest show ever for Vince back then. And so me and Hawk we start our keys in the locker room, and sure enough, there's a guy at the Kensington Hotel Holiday Inn downtown London from the local strip bar here in Minneapolis that me and Mike both know. Well, we got hooked up with him. He's Hell's Angels guy. Next thing you know, we know we're screwed anyways. We got 6 weeks off. We're screwed. So we just kind of lost our minds, and we went to Luton, England, which is like an hour away from London, out in the thing. And we go to the Hell's Angels chapter house. And we're doing, I know I did 2 8-balls myself. So that's what, 6 grams. And I think Mike did the same, maybe more. But then some guy, they were doing acid. I've never done acid in my life except for that night. And I've never did it since. But some guy hands me a strip, like a thing of, like those little candy things you eat off a strip, like Pez or something. And he goes, there's 7 hits on there, so careful. I said, give me that thing. I just took the whole thing. Oh, my God. People's faces were turning into demons, and I was just screwed. But that's the most I ever did. And that was...
Yeah. And you wouldn't want to mix those 2 things. You're lucky you didn't get arrested by doing something absolutely crazy.
Big time.
Yeah.
Oh, big time. We're both, me and Mike are trying now just to get home. I just want to get home. And we're staying in Luton, England at this house now from one of the strippers, Yvette. And we're still tweaking, me and Mike. And now we're on our way back to the airport. And all we do is keep looking at each other like this. We can't even talk. We're just looking at each other like, holy shit, hang on. And I remember flying back Hannibal and with Mike, and I had never been so miserable and so remorseful. Oh, my God. My dear sweet wife took it like a champ. And I remember them 6 weeks. Mike went home. He kept going, but I went home because he didn't have nobody to go home to. I went home and shit. I trained for 6 weeks, but Mike, I'd go stop and see him, and shit, he'd be hiding in the corner. Mike, come on out. It's me. You don't have to hide, So even as cool as guy as Mike Hagstrand was, and he was an awesome, huge-hearted, cool guy, the best. He even the power of the drug makes him hide in the corners.
Yeah, from the paranoia. And as crazy as that story is, that's what made you guys such great characters, because you were such great characters out of the ring. You mentioned Wayne Bloom's son, not experienced in the road. You guys kind of, I don't know if you already were a bit crazy and the road made it worse, but it seems like the road created like your generation of the best characters there ever were in wrestling.
Yeah, it might have exemplified it, that's for sure. But I think we were that way anyways. But the thing is once you're done with the match and piss tests really weren't a big deal ever, because you just cheat anyways. And but yeah, I agree with you. I think Mike was the way he was. I was the way I was. And a lot of the guys, Barry Darso, is the nicest guy in the world. Just, by his, even in the ring,
He still could be a badass, I'm sure, if he was put in the right situation. I know he's not a fighter or anything, but I'm sure, like, if you guys got into a fight at the bar, I'm sure he would back you up.
Huge. He's the most underrated athlete there is. The guy was a great athlete. He could hit a ball farther than any guy that I knew. And baseball, football, he was a really good football player, but he wasn't a fighter. And thank God, he's just a beautiful human being. He really is.
Two guys you forgot to mention that definitely would have been at that hotel table, or maybe three, is Iron Sheik, Roddy Piper, and Jimmy Snuka.
Well said. Me and Jimmy, I remember looking at Jimmy and everybody's locking up, right? Now everybody's getting quiet. And I look at Jimmy, and all of a sudden Jimmy starts like giggling because he knows that I'm looking at him, and I start giggling. And that Snuka was one of the greatest guys. Oh my God, was he fun. He just would laugh so hard when you were drinking, you know. It's too bad the blow always came, but it did. But even drinking with Jimmy and those, the other guys, absolutely they would be. But almost every guy in the WWF back then, if you kind of made them going, you got to come by the hotel room or we're coming to your room. And they would come and they would probably do blow, you know.
I heard Piper did it right up until the end, and that might be one of the reasons why he passed so young.
I don't doubt that for a second. And if you ever interview the grappler, Lenny is really got a resentment towards Roddy.
Because he was the hookup, wasn't he? Wasn't Lenny back in the day hooking everybody up?
Yeah. Yeah. And well, Lenny just like, I just said, God, Lenny, you're a short, fat hillbilly that don't look like you could hurt a fly, but you've been in wrestling for 20 years. I said, what the? Shut up, guy's my best buddy, but he, Piper, I mean, there's stuff I don't even, it's really some heavy stuff, but Roddy opened Piper's transmission shop. Transmission shop. And Lenny ran it. And Lenny taught himself how to actually fix transmissions. And he really did good. And it took him years to get paid. Well, finally, Piper paid him. Roddy paid him. I think he gave him $100,000 or something. And it would be a good one to ask Lenny. And then when they were in Germany once, Piper's Lenny's being his what he is a side guy that's helping him, Yeah. And they're in Germany, and Piper's doing some kind of movie or commercials or something in Germany, and then but then Piper brings this other guy, this young blonde-haired kid. And this is true story. You got to get the grappler on. He'll tell you. And Piper took Lenny's per diem money. He was supposed to give it to him. It was $300 a day. And they were there for 10 days. And Roddy didn't give it to him. And Lenny's just like, geez, Roddy, he ain't going to go. And he says, Roddy, what's the deal with this fucking blonde-haired kid? You didn't keep his per diem. And Piper goes, okay, I suck his dick. That's heavy. But you can go right to the grappler on that one.
Marty, I will ask the grappler that because I may actually be in Portland next year. But as far as Marty Jannetty,
I hope you are, Hannibal, because I'm gonna for that Portland deal.
Oh yeah, I'll be there. That'll be great.
Yeah, we'll have a blast. I'll light it up with you a little bit. But no, I mean, not even drinking or nothing, just having fun. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I probably have the same problems as you.
Well, there you go. But
Marty Jannetty told me the same thing about Piper.
When I just want to tell you, when I do say stuff like that, like about Roddy, he's gone in heaven, and I'm very touchy about that. And I feel really bad when I say stuff about guys that are dead and say stuff immoral or degrading. So good Lord forgive me for saying that. I should have just said, talk to Lenny, and where Lenny just tells you, because it's, he ain't gonna.
I heard from Bruce Hart back when he was training me in the dungeon that there may have been something with Martel and Piper at one point.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all. And Rick, a guy that is greatest guys you'll ever meet in your whole life, And I know when I broke in, the big to-do was him and Zink, had a little thing going, and me and Henny would be running around the hotel rooms, and I just broke in. It's 1984, and then Zink would be in Martel's room, just sitting there drinking with them. They wouldn't be doing nothing, but then the word got out. It was they were suspect. So
Billy Jack Haynes, maybe you could confirm this. He told me that the reason why Tom Zink left WWE abruptly was some type of harassment from Pat Patterson. I know Zink was from Minnesota. Did you ever hear anything about that?
About that?
That Pat may
Zink
have hit
got
on
harassed by Patterson.
Yeah, and then
I would say I did hear that same thing, I think, but I would say it's very possible because Tom was super kind of a little bit paranoid, like Kurt, maybe a little bit paranoid, where maybe Patterson said something like, well, come on by and have some spaghetti. And then all of a sudden, Tom goes nuts and says, he wanted me to come by and fuck him. No, we just are having spaghetti, And because Pat used to have a few parties, him and Louie. And they were gay. And here I'm over there. I don't even believe there's gay people out there. I'm like, really? Chris told me, yeah. And Kirk goes, yeah, go up to Pat and say, ask him where his wife is. I go, really? I go, oh, he's got a wife? Okay, so I walk up to Pat. I go, hey, Pat, John Norton. I said, we're at his and Louie's place. And I said, yeah, how long you been married, huh? Kurt said something like you lost your wedding ring down the drain or something. Kurt just got me on it. And Patterson looks at me and goes, I haven't been married ever. Who told you that? I said, that fucking Henning. So, but yeah, I believe it could be. Tom was real paranoid too about shit. And I think that's how Tom died, was the meth and being paranoid to the very bitter end, because that's the power of that evil shit,
Yeah. As far as Billy Jack Haynes, I'm sure you've heard of everything that's been going on with him. I actually just talked to his lawyer last week. He's in jail still, and his health hasn't been the best. But
yeah,
how have your experiences been with Billy Jack over the years? Because he talked highly of you anytime I talked to him.
That's nice of him. Yeah, that's nice of him. Yeah, no, I never had a problem with him. I did a few matches with him in Portland, and he was stiff, but you just had to be stiff back. But the one thing I don't like what he did was he was going to beat up Lenny, the grappler, over some deal.
Oh, yeah, they have heat. He hates the grappler.
Right. And again, if you ever interview the grappler, Hannibal, ask him about Piper and Germany, and ask him about Billy Jack, because it was a real story. He was literally laying in the weeds for him in a bedroom, and some guy, one of the boys, asked him to come over to his place, and they had it planned out. And I think Billy Jack was like literally in the bedroom with the door open, and like he was gonna thump him, And somehow Lenny was smooth enough not to get thumped, because the reality is, he probably would have thumped him. Would Lenny fight back? Hell yes. Would Billy Jack know when he was in a fight? Hell yes, he would know it. He wouldn't come out unscarred. But he was laying in the weeds for him and just super evil shit over nothing.
Well, Billy kind of lost his mind toward the end, sadly, hence why he's in jail now, probably for the rest of his life. But maybe you can confirm this, because I'll be honest, I don't believe this. He claimed that he was a big drug dealer and he worked for Lenny Montana, the famous dealer out of Miami.
He's so colossally full of shit. He's a freaking jailbird from the word go. Always has been, always will be. The guy just murdered his wife because it was inevitable. He's so colossally full of shit. It's unbelievable. Yeah, Lenny, I heard the same thing. It's just ridiculously stupid. I could see the guy being a bodyguard, but he seems to always talk himself into a corner and where people don't like him,
Sadly, he kind of talked him. He actually kind of got his wish where he was making all this stuff up and acting like he should be in jail. And then ultimately he is in jail.
Right.
But,
and I don't know. I've only seen one picture of him in 35 years, but he looked kind of like a girl or something, like a grandma. I don't know.
Well, they shaved his head now. I don't know if it's because of drug use or he's been hit in the head too many times, but I do think he legitimately got brain damage.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And the guy was a tough guy. Let me tell you, in a real fight, yeah, he's a tough guy, definitely.
One story that Barry Darso told me that just came to mind is he said that when you guys were young, you may have been 18 or 19, Arnold came to Minneapolis and he would not pose with you. You went to meet him and he would not flex around you.
Well, I'll tell you what it was Darso says I was 16, 17. No, actually I was 19 and I was just in teenage Minnesota. And I think my arms were, I think they were about 22 and all that. And I would pull it out and kind of, pull down your shirt on your thigh. So it looks like you got a peak and then, and it was just, and Arnold really did. He was at Southdale Mall promoting his book, and it was 78. He was promoting his book and just sitting there, and he couldn't have been a nicer guy. And we were all just clowns, hanging on each other. Hey, Arnold, what about them bikini girls that you're holding up? And all that. Oh, don't get no better, boys, my boys. And he was a great guy. But yeah, Barry's kind of, Barry, we had a great name for him because he tells an unbelievable story. And so Kurt dubbed him Mileage Plus. There used to be that program on United Airlines. So in other words, he just was a dramatic, and he tells a great story, but they're true. He just spices them a little like we all do, I guess.
He tells another one that you had a back workout that instantly gave you an extra inch on your back. Now, we have a lot of bodybuilders.
There you go.
Is this true? Like, for all the bodybuilders watching, what was involved in this workout?
Well, there was two of them. There was a back, and it was in Iron Man magazine, and it was Bob Hoffman. And Bob Hoffman said if you did a 24-hour arm workout, you'll do an inch on your arm And if you did a 24-hour back workout, you'd put an inch on your back automatically and it'll stay. So I did the back, and shit, Darso said, add 200-pound plates on there, no. But I had like a 45 maybe. Wayne Bloom could probably have a 345s and do pull-ups, but I did them. And what you do is you do a hard 20 minutes out of every hour, rows, pull-ups, shrugs, rows, pull-ups, shrugs, hard as you can go for 20 minutes. Then you rest 40 minutes. And then you do this for a full 24 hours, And I did it at Ventura's gym. But I'll tell you this, it almost felt like your back never was. It did actually feel like you got an inch, and it never went away. So it was just crazy things back then in training, probably not even, it probably didn't even come to be, but it might have, but it was sure fun. And it was always, you never had Ventura on your show, have you, Hannibal?
No, he wanted a ridiculous amount. I know you used to work for him though, right? You
Out of high school, my brother actually introduced him to his wife, and at North Hennepin and then junior college. And it was when junior college football was good. And Ventura, I remember watching him when I would have been 15 when my brother was playing. So I got to know him, and he was a pro wrestler then, but he was going as just Surfer Jesse. That was his name when he first started. And
I would have loved to have seen him try and surf with his.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, boy, Surfer Jesse, right on Ventura Highway too. But yeah, he, me and Wayne were hard on him because we would just go, God, you're full of shit, And the story I got is we're out in front of his house. His wife's inside the house by the big picture window, and she's looking in the front yard, or actually the backyard, I guess. And we helped move a refrigerator. And he goes, hey, Nord, I got a move I can put on you, and with the other hand eat an apple and hold you down. And I go, fucking do it now. So he puts in a leg, kind of puts in an arm, and Wayne says, 1, 2, 3, go. I just popped up, exploded, turned him upside down, and just slammed him. And his hair sticking up this way and that way. And he was so embarrassed. And his wife, I'll never forget, I looked up at his wife at the picture window, and she was like this. Because Jesse had a very touchy ego. You could imagine that, right?
Oh, he still does.
Oh, my God. It's always the same. Listen,
he just signed a 5-year contract, by the way. I don't know if you heard. WWE signed him for 5 years.
WWE did?
Yeah.
As an announcer?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good move myself.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm not a Ventura fan. Matter of fact, he's just believe me, I knew him so well because he even came up to me when I was 18 and said, Johnny, if you ever want to get in pro wrestling, let me know. So that was very nice. But one thing I couldn't handle and nobody else could handle is being talking about him. You don't even make eye contact,
Yeah.
And
recently he also endorsed Harris recently after saying he would never endorse anybody from the two parties.
He endorsed Harris?
Yes.
If he had any hair on his head, I'd rip it right out of his head right now. he's a goof. And his wife's a sweetheart, Terry, you know, she really is. And I remember him coming back one time and he pulls into the gym and he's driving a 280Z brown one. And he comes up out of the car and he's got that straggly hair. And it's, Johnny, I just drove back Portland nonstop, 2,000 miles. I was popping speed. It's a great high, man. And I didn't even know what speed was. You know, you don't know nothing when you're 18. And by the way, Terry told me while I was gone that you gave some wrestling fan our number. Well, I did. I didn't, you know, shit, I didn't know I was. Don't ever do that. I says, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm not exactly, you know, and he just, he's so touchy. I think he's going to help their show, you know, because their show has nowhere to go but up. You got to get an old timer in there, man.
Yeah, he'll definitely bring the old fans will at least check it out for I guess it's just going to be matches here and there that he's going to do, but I guess they don't want him going to AEW, so they wanted to lock him up.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that makes sense. But nevertheless, I think Jake Roberts could do what Jesse Ventura can do, and probably better. You know.
I heard you say Wayne Bloom also got into a skirmish with Jesse at one point over something about his wife.
Funny as hell. We're at the gym. My buddy Jim Younger owned it. He's real good. Knobs was just in town a week ago running around with Jimmy Younger, the guy who literally the gym where all of us guys went for years. And so he had a gym party. Well, guess what? Everybody's drinking and doing blow. And then Wayne had said something to Terry, like, hey, honey, you know, Wayne's got that freaking mouth with women. He always gets in trouble with women. He does to this day. My wife couldn't stand him. Nobody liked Wayne, you know, all the wives. But anyway, so he said something to Ventura's wife, and Ventura cold cocked Wayne. Well, Wayne just went about like this, you know, and then the shit was on. Wayne came at him and started just boom, 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 as fast as you, because Wayne's tough. You ain't, he's tough as shit. You ain't gonna do that to him. And he just punched him. Then Ventura went down, started covering up, and almost was out. Then while Wayne was doing that, Terry took her high heel shoe off and started hitting Wayne in the back of the head. So it's the high heel shoe with Ventura's wife's story, if you ever talk to Wayne Bloom. And Wayne, you know, Shawn Michaels still loves to even tell that story, I heard.
I guess the Navy SEAL training didn't help him there.
Yeah. Yeah. Johnny, I swam competitive for 7 years. Yeah, really proud of you, Jim.
He did a big podcast lately with a guy that's like quite popular, and he kept cutting the guy off whenever he would ask him a question about himself. He would like, and then the guy totally like did a video just bashing Jesse over it.
It's exactly he's unbelievably just, to me, and I'm not hating on him, but he's the phoniest guy I've ever known. He's just so into himself, the phoniness. He is in another world, and he always counters you. He could be pro-life, but if you said, Jesse, I'm pro-life, Johnny, technically I'm pro-abortion, because did you know this? He always wants to prove how smart he is. He's so busy being clever, he sounds like a dumbass.
Did you vote for him when he got the governorship?
No, I didn't, but I'll give it to him that because there was nobody else, I got invited to his inaugural, though, where they invite everybody. So that was pretty cool. I didn't go, but that was a big deal. But I'll tell you, I thought he did a good job. Just because there was nobody else to vote for, but he ended up doing an okay job. But the guy is insane. You know, I mean, he could never be president. He's actually dangerously delusional. And that's no bullshit. That is no bullshit.
I don't know who have said they're going to run for president more and not him or Hogan.
That to what?
Like Jesse, I've heard him say he's going to run for president so many times, and at this point, he's. I don't think he's going to do it at his age.
None of them got a snowball's chance in hell. Him or Hogan, no. Frickin' Ventura. But Jesse just, I mean, even that deal back with the sniper guy, you know, right? That story. And here you are disrespecting that guy, you know, saying that. And then he wins what? $9 million, but the judge, it was great because he never got paid. Remember that?
Yeah. They didn't have the money to pay it or something.
Yeah, and thank God he didn't get 1 cent because he's a lying piece of shit.
Now, I know you might say the same thing about Greg, but there might be some truth to this. I recently saw an interview with Greg Gagne, who kind of took some shots at you because he said you had all the potential in the world. I do agree with this, you never reached your full potential, but he said that they had a great hotel deal in Denver where it was like $37 a night right across from the arena.
Yeah.
And you came in there and like destroyed the whole place.
Oh, fuck.
And they had to fire you or something over it just so they wouldn't lose the hotel deal. What's the true story there? Well,
that's kind of true. We did wreck it, but there was like 4 of us. Kurt Hennig. Let's get these other names in. And by the way, the potential, absolutely. I treated wrestling like a part-time job. And I'm not being macho. I just always had the car business. And I always wanted to just be home with my wife and kids. You know, it was so hard to be gone. And I know that we all struggled with that, being on the road. I'm nothing original in anything, you know, as far as that goes. But I never did reach my potential. Hell no. First of all, you got to ask and care about your job. And you got to ask questions and say, how did that look? Do you think I'm, just copying Brody? Do you think if I do this? I never asked anybody nothing. And it wasn't out of pride because most of it was I was just there. I wanted to get to the party, you know, but it's not paying. I was just not very smart that way.
Yeah, everybody makes mistakes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it was Kurt Hennig that was also involved in that. Greg was just leaving his name out.
Because, you can't. And Greg, now, here's what I can say about Greg, because what we talked to him a couple months ago, Justin? And Greg, Justin's heard all these stories. That's why he's just sitting here. But Greg called me up and said, hey, I would send that figure contract in, you know, for this Rosenthal guy.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's even happening past like the first 6 they put out, because that's been going on for years, right? I was supposed
exactly. Yeah, and all you seen was the first few figures. Brody and
Kerry Von Erich, I think, a couple.
Right. I totally. But Greg is so unbelievably kind of like delusional himself. He's very condescending. And I'll tell you, a guy who really does not like him was Brad Rangans, because Brad came in and kind of became Vern Gagne's stretch guy, you know. And Brad really never stretched. He stretched it. He actually stretched Kurt Hennig in 1980, really bad, because Vern asked him to, and then of course they ended up best friends almost, and but Brad Reagan's can't stand Greg Gagne. They haven't talked for decades because he won't even talk to him. He treated Brad really bad because he was so jealous of him, you know, that, you know, and being an owner's son and calling the shots and having this condescending talk. And last time I talked to Greg, I said, you know, you think you're so well spoke or something. You don't try to be so freaking intelligent. You're really not, Greg. I says, God, you're just you wear them white trunks and it looked like you had a fucking Pampers on or something, you know? And all these 350-pound guys flying around the ring from this 185-pound guy that looks out of shape. And you think that's good for wrestling. And I remember doing interviews, Hannibal, and he says, always baby faces always put your heels over. Well, that's the rule of thumb. You always, otherwise. So he does my interview and he says, Barbarian, I've wrestled a lot of guys tougher than you. You're not. I says, Greg, what happened to putting your heel over? Oh, I had to get that in there. It's Milwaukee's my town, you know, or whatever, you know. But Greg's just a weasel. Last time I seen him, I hadn't seen him for a long time. He says, hey, John, and I'm at the airport waiting on the plane to go to, where were we? St. Louis. And he's going, I've got this girlfriend. She's a gymnast. She's so hot. I said, wow, good for you. Again, now he's doing the Ventura. It's all about him. And I said, great. Where I think somewhere in North Dakota, like Bismarck. And she's really hot. And I'm having just, I says, so let me get this. You're living on your Social Security. You got a hot girlfriend. I says, how old is she, Greg? Well, she's 76, but I said, now you're telling me about how hot this 76-year-old lady is. You know, and that's what I said to him. But that's kind of shit he does. He's just a Jaime. He's a freaking Jaime.
Here, and I'll just put this up in case any other wrestlers see this to sign his contract. I sent him an unrelated email like over a year ago. This is from almost a year and a half ago. And I got back this generic email from him. I'll just put it up on the screen where he claims that it's still happening. But I think he must have got like some sort of percentage of money.
Is that what that says? It's still in the works?
Yeah, and this was March 2023.
Well, I agree with you. I think it's still a long shot because anytime anything goes that dead and you don't hear nothing, and of course Greg is getting a slice of the pie. Shit, that's without saying. Why would he care about a, you know, Rosen, you know, I'm trying to, you know, there again, he puts himself in this big position. I'm trying to get, what do you say, 250 guys? Was that it or something?
Yeah. And I don't know if he got a amount of money for every guy that he signed or what. That would make sense to me.
That's what I think. And so why, otherwise, what in the world would he be calling you, being nice to you for if he didn't have a slice?
Yeah. And then nothing came. It's pretty clear nothing ever is going to come of it at this point.
Yeah. And it's funny, we go to the Bruiser Brody Memorial, me and Justin here, and Burgo Brothers Promotions. And anyways, we go there, and Greg's like a little lost puppy. He's going around the hotel, and knock, knock, knock on our door. He goes, yeah, geez, I don't got a room, he says, right? He says, I ain't got a room. He wants to come in. I says, well, I don't want you in here, Greg. I really don't fucking want you in here. I don't even, I'm here for not enough money anyways. And so he's going around and he just wants somebody to drink with. Well, then he kind of figures out that, guess what, Greg? Because you and your phony, his sarcasm and his condescending fucking talk he's had for 50 years is catching up to you. Now you got no friends at the fucking bar. And that's what you got.
Fancy jumpsuits.
Huh?
His fancy jumpsuits that he wears.
Yeah, you're right.
That went out of style 30 years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, he he was right on the Denver thing, but the thing is Greg will get an occasional story and he'll blow it up to hell. It really might not even happen, as most of us do. I might spice it up, but I don't lie on these stories. These are real stories.
And there's one story I want you to confirm, because I know that you know the truth about this. I have my own heat with Abdullah the Butcher, but he always claims he's some karate master. He carries around some stupid card where he claims he's like a 7th degree black belt, but he's been wrestling since he was like 18 on the road every freaking day. When has he had time to do any of this? And he's never been known as a tough guy. Is Abdullah the Butcher some 7th degree black belt karate master?
The answer is 100% no. And he's this tough. 0. Butchie, if he fought a high school kid, the high school kid would knock him off his feet and he couldn't get back up like a fucking turtle. That's Butchie. I was in Japan with him just for I think 3 weeks once. And I got to know him, and he'd freaking walk around like a chicken or something, can't count a con, baby. That's all he ever said. He can't count a con, baby. And he put his pimp suit on. And then I heard he did the GoFundMe, and his 2 weeks later, he's doing a show,
He did a show the same weekend after he collected $7,000, saying he was in the hospital on death's door.
Yeah, he's on this, he must have got, some kind of tube and taped his own nose, and but laid on a bed in his house, and
it was in Carolina too, so he actually traveled to a different city, and he's taken. I mean, at least kayfabe it to these people that paid you all this money, because it's not going to work again for a lot of them.
Yeah, and the shitty part about that is then it's bad for the rest of the guys, But I think, I'll say this.
He claimed he can't read too. Did you ever notice if he could read or not?
Oh, I bet you're right. Oh yeah, he's just dumber than hell. It's so ridiculous. But yeah, no, I forgot where we were going with this. But anyways,
I think you were saying that because there's some people that really need GoFundMes.
Yeah, well, I know Justin had my son start a GoFundMe for my leg, because I was, as of just a month ago, I didn't know if I was going to lose it or not. And I still now have had a setback in my leg that, because I've been running some temperatures, 101, 100. So now all of a sudden the infection's still there. And son of a bitch, I thought I was out of the woods, And I had a cast on for a couple months. And I've been fighting this since last December 27th, my leg. But I was going to give a shout out, kudos to the Cauliflower Alley Club. Hannibal, I always laughed at that club. I always thought God, that's just another joke. What the fuck is that? Well, here they come through big for me, bought me a $4,500 scooter. They have been so freaking nice to me. I will always be a member. I will always go to them. Brian Blair and Darla, I'm telling you, they're as good as people as you will ever find. They're just about, here's what he said to me. He said, hey, John. I said, well, then I got to fill out this form and tax. I said, I don't really want to do nothing. And he says, hey, just write whatever you want, sign it. I'll run with the ball. So I thought, okay, that's nice. And he said, the last thing he said to me was, help me spend Rock's money. And then here, The Rock had just given a $40,000 donation about a year ago, I think now. And so then I sent it in, but they bought me a scooter, and it cost $4,500, and it was just so damn nice of them guys. And Darla, God bless her, her and Barbara Brody are good friends. They live in Daytona Beach and want me to come down. Well, when you're 65 and the girls are 70, you're just like, you just don't go down there like as quick as you used to. It's just hard. Ugh. But they're, God, what sweet people. So
yeah, Barbara's really, really nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Darla, she's the black-haired, right? Black hair, dyes her hair black, and just a gem, just beautiful, beautiful people. And then I've never been a big fan of Brian Blair's, because I always said him and Brunzell, I'm like, hold it, you guys are going back at Vince like you got pulled. Nobody gives a shit about the Killer Bees. Are you kidding me? I used to say that to Bronzy, Well, I regret saying that now because Brian has been so good to me. And he knows I love him, and he knows I'd say it to his face anyways. But they're just there to help people, period. It doesn't matter. And what I love about them, they said, we're going to give you this money. You do anything you want with it. We don't care. And, like my kids are so stiff that like the GoFundMe, they make me have it medical, otherwise they don't give it to me. And it pisses me off. And Justin knows that. But Cauliflower Alley Hannibal sent me $4,500. Well, me and Justin went and got the scooter I wanted because I'm sick of being trapped in my room for a year now. And so I got at least I can scooter around the neighborhood. It's a 4-wheel, kind of nice one and all that. But then the GoFundMe, or where I was going with this, but anyways.
I'll put the link up for the GoFundMe at the bottom of the screen here.
Yeah.
For anybody that wants to help you out.
Yeah. And actually,
you know what you should try and do? Try and get on the Undertaker's podcast and talk about the GoFundMe on there. I'll even friggin' send this to him because he has a podcast now, and him interviewing you, one of his biggest rivals,
that'd be great.
Almost killed him with the sword. That would get so many hits.
I like that. That's a good job. Yeah, no, Justin will definitely follow up with that for me. And me and the Undertaker, we've been stuck in some places together doing blow and drinking. Let me tell you, really bad. And he's just one of them guys that can really make them laugh, and really get a little graphic. And I know one time right at the beginning, he was always in the strip clubs and that shit. And I says, hey, where's Taker? So I go to the side locker room, and he's laying on a bench like a wooden locker room bench like this, totally naked, with his balls hanging over the side, like this, like a sex symbol or something. I started laughing so damn hard. And yeah, the more graphic I got with the Undertaker on talking to him and trying to make him laugh, the harder he laughed. So that's what I do.
And when you feuded with him, there was no way of knowing that he would go on to be this massive legend. You were one of his first feuds. You were one of the first guys that actually like gave him punishment, and he wasn't just running over.
Yeah. And I was, and it was funny because JBL and Jerry Briscoe, they had their cast, and me in my mouth, I'm like, well, let me tell you, the Undertaker, I was in Japan with him, and he's going down the aisle, dong, dong, and he's moving really slow. And I said, JBL, is that his name, JBL? And I said, JBL, I said, they just wiped their ass with it. They thought it was the most freaking ridiculous thing they ever seen. And he couldn't have a good match because the Japanese just don't take to that kind of slow movement. But so by the grace of the good Lord, I was able to have a good match with him, because I just bounce around and do all the shit and this, that, and the other. And but yeah, on the 10 greatest Undertaker feuds, I'm number 10. So I'll take that, I guess.
I remember I was in grade 4 when you had that sword incident, and it aired on Saturday morning Superstars. And I remember the Monday, everybody was talking about it at my school that you tried to kill the Undertaker. And we know it was a real sword because the sword stuck in the ring.
Right.
That was a great angle.
Thanks.
For that.
Yeah. I had Vince and Pat come up to me and go, here it was Toledo, Ohio, and he says they had Mark in the trailer, and they were talking to him, and I'm just like, just another day for me. I hope, and they asked him, who can you have a good match with? And he said John Norton. So I'm grateful the rest of my life for that, because that's what he said. And then Pat and Vince brought me in the trailer and told me that. But then they said, hey, you think you could get that sword to stick in the ring? I said, you're damn right I will. I didn't know if I could. Shit. But the only thing I regret on it is I wish I would have got it closer to him and not have him move and then stick it too far after he moved. But they dubbed it up a little.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember that as a kid even
good
thinking anything, but you were trying to kill him. But I was a kid at that time. Was he nervous at all? Because even me, I might be a bit nervous, like trusting somebody. I know you guys knew each other, but that's a big level of trust there.
That is, I was nervous. And, but I don't, if he was nervous, he didn't tell me. My nervousness was I had a good feeling that I could do it, but then I wanted to just beat the shit out of him so I could have a good spot. And I did. My money tripled, and I just really appreciate Mark Calloway for, putting in the work. And that's what pro wrestling is in the WWF. Is one guy in the trailer telling Vince and Pat that use this guy, then it's done. And it happens. And it's just like, I was never a big Randy Savage fan. I mean, I traveled with Randy. I liked him and all that, but I don't go for the paranoid shit and the being that stiff and that, he went through a hell of a thing with Elizabeth. I know that. I got compassion for that. We all do. But I just don't like being around the guys that believe in their own bullshit and are paranoid.
How was Savage to work with? Because I remember, I think WWE Fan Favorites or something, you had one of the main matches on this popular video cassette with
Yeah.
Randy that I think that may have been one of your first losses.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I do remember wrestling him and Hogan in Amarillo, Texas. And I just did my backward bump over the top rope for Hulkster a few times. And Randy was, I got to hand it to Randy Savage, just really good athlete, really good. But he wasn't necessarily a contact tough guy, you know. He wouldn't exactly be there for you if the shit broke out in a fight. That much, I think, too, is I think he'd sure skedaddle. I think he'd run, you know, if the shit broke out. Where guys from Robinsdale, that's not true.
I guess it was bad timing when you were there because Hogan was on his little hiatus through most of that. You probably would have had more matches with Hogan if he had been wrestling more regularly at that time.
Yeah, and I think if I had to do it over again, you see, I wanted to be Norton the Barbarian, and they wouldn't do it, you know, and they made me the Viking, and I thought, well, the Viking ain't too bad. I don't mind that name. I love the Minnesota Vikings. I love Vikings and all that. But then that was trademarked, so they had to switch to the word Bezerker. And Vince thought of that one because it's a form of a Viking. But I never did like the name Hannibal. Never did.
The one thing that I'm just thinking about the difference between wrestling then and now, why I hate it now is because you'll have two enemies standing in the ring talking for 20 minutes. All you and Undertaker needed for your feud was just the sword, and you never would have like stood in the ring for 20 minutes talking back and forth week after week.
Right.
It's just so unbelievable to me because if two people hate each other, they're just gonna fight when they see each other.
Yeah. I agree. I guess I forget that. But I am glad that particular match, I mean, who know, go figure, 3 years later, we're watching it on phones, you know. I mean, it was, but one thing they didn't like is after I had slammed them on the floor and then I was leaving, I took my tunic off and threw it on them. And I get back and maybe thought that I was trying to win too strong on them. But I get back and Patton came up to me and goes, "Why did you take your tunic off and throw it on them? You were supposed to do that." I go, "Oh, I'm sorry. Fuck." You know. But I was just being like, "Fuck, you're dead," you know, that type of thing. And but that's how stiff they were. They were very picky about Mark Calloway. I will tell you, this first year they knew they were going to put him over for 20 years, and he was the right guy. You know, he could run. He could have the spot. You know.
You talk about Macho Man having an ego. Did Bret Hart have an ego when you wrestled him? Because I know you wrestled him on house shows too. I remember seeing you on a house show here against Bret.
Yeah. No, but what that fucking Bret did do to me, and I love Bret. I've been to his house with his kids. I've been traveled with them and all that. But what that fucker did do to me was, we're talking the match, and he said, "We're going to do this and that and this and that, and then you get your heat. You know, I'll take a bump outside, you get your heat and this and that. And then it's time for me to get my shit in." And he's screaming, "It's time to go home. It's time to go home." So he put the sharpshooter on me, you know. So I didn't get none of my shit in. And I've been pissed for 30 years.
Is there any reason why they cut your match other than time with British Bulldog at WrestleMania 8? Because a lot of people were excited to see that match.
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you what. I agree. I don't know, something in running out of time. It was pretty basic. It was nothing towards me or him. Shit, we got paid the same money. I think I got I think I got a check for 25 grand, you know, and because I asked Davey Boy, I said, what'd you get? He said 25. I said, that's what I got. I said, good. Well, we didn't have to do one damn thing at least. But that ain't the point. You want to do something, you know. And yeah, people have asked me that a lot. And it always kind of hurt, you know, and I'm like, God, I'm not part of the big push here. Otherwise, they would just not have us on. You know what I mean? And maybe they just thought, you know, but I'll tell you what, through all the places, through 3 Japan companies and 6 territories, I never got fired, ever. And but I always ended up just quitting. Even Vince, I quit. I came back for 2 weeks and I went, fuck, I just can't do it. So I quit again. And actually, here's something funny. I got the 6 weeks off. I came back hairy, in good shape. Actually, that was when I wrestled Brett, and he put the sharpshooter on me, and I was and that was December of '94. I mean, no, '92. And then I came back because the partying. Most of it was the partying. I just didn't want to party no more like that, and I couldn't stop myself. I would go, let's go, you know. And so I came back. I had shaved my beard. I had a Fu Manchu like this. I had my hair this length. And I came in the locker room. Nobody recognized me. I go, Brett, how you doing? Good, good. I said, John Norton. Holy shit! That's you, John. So, and I actually wrestled, I think 3 or 4 times like this in in January or February '93. And I've always waited for someone to say something like, I seen you wrestle when you didn't have no hair and you were the Bezerker. And I'm like, nobody's ever said it.
How many kids do you have?
3.
3. Okay, so you
went
back.
I got my son's the wrestling coach for Columbia University. And so I got great. I'm like everybody else. We brag about our kids. But my one girl's a doctor for a line of health system, just a regular medical doctor. And then the other one's, she's kind of a flake, but she just graduated from Columbia. Lizzie's cute. She's always had the boys chasing her, and now those are my kids. My wife, and God bless her heart, she divorced me because she couldn't take my just freaking crazy ways. But she was a freaking Nazi with the kids, you know. They weren't getting away with, not like a lot of wives, you know. And that's what I give the credit to. If my kids turned out, is my wife. Sure as hell wasn't me, but at least they had a lot of fun with me.
Yeah, I can imagine that they probably did. There's a lot of fans asking on here if Mr. Fuji ever ribbed you or if you ever saw him play any crazy ribs that he's known for.
Master Fuji. Well, you know, Fuji would always be talking about his son and his daughter. They were twins, Kevin and Kelly. And Mr. Fuji talked like this. Oh, John, me, and he screwed. Justin knows where I'm going with this. He said, John, well, I want that Kevin. He gonna play for USC Trojan someday. And I'm like, yeah, Fuji's gonna be about 5'6". I don't think so. But you know, he had that broken English, and some of the shit he'd say, like, you know, it'd be a funny word, like he'd say nasty, and he should have said smooth or something. I'm like, and you had to kind of follow. He had broken English, but anyways, he said, you know, I got divorced, John, you know, and Kevin was at school, and they are laughing at him, going, ha ha, ha ha, your mommy and daddy divorced. So I teach him sidekick, super kick. I teach him, fuck him up. I just thought that was funny.
He didn't do all the house shows with you, right? Because I remember seeing you at house shows and there was no Mr. Fuji with you.
Yeah. Fuji moved around a little bit. I could never quite figure it out. I know he liked managing me a lot, but they would kind of use him generically. So I never did figure that out.
There's a fan on here that wants to know your thoughts on Giant Gonzalez and Virgil.
Virgil,
yeah.
Mike Jones. Yeah, Virgil is a great guy. My thoughts are he's just a great guy, straight shooter, but he's lucky he got his money for free. Shit, he never had to bump around a lot. He had a great deal and he knew it. He didn't screw it up. Now, Giant Gonzalez, I just knew him for a month maybe, and he was freaking huge. Did they put that suit on him?
With the fur and all that.
That was freaky. I don't know. He was insanely huge. Who was the guy in the movie The Big Fish?
I don't remember.
There's a movie called The Big Fish, and it was I think Gonzalez was the giant in there. And he had a few movie parts, but his name was George, and just a great guy. Great guy.
Yeah, and he passed away really young too.
Oh, that's too bad. I didn't know that.
He was only in his 50s.
Yeah, that's too bad.
There's a fan on here from Norway, and he says, being from Norway, he loved your gimmick, and he says, do you know that Nord actually means north in Norway?
I did know that. And because I'll see signs even in Canada, I'll see Nord. So I don't know, maybe the Canucks call it Nord too, but yeah, I knew. I think it's more than just a country, but yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate you telling me that. I love, I don't know if we ever wrestled in Norway, did we?
I don't think so, but I would imagine you would have been a massive star there.
Oh, yeah, so massive star. I don't know. I don't know if they would have made me a massive star for anything because I don't think they could trust me. You got to show up at the arena, shit like that. Just little things.
Yeah. You definitely had the size and the look, and you're actually a great promo. You're underrated for your promo ability, but
yeah, I wish I will say that I wish they would have gave me more time where you could just run with it. But I had to have my head on straight on what gimmick. I always felt like I just wanted to be Nord the Barbarian, and that's what I felt comfortable doing. And it was funny because you'd get on the gas and all of a sudden your lower back would be just cramping and you ran out of gas quick in the ring too. But then when I wasn't on the gas, which was most of the time, I wasn't a big roid guy, but when I wasn't, boy, I never ran out of gas. And that's the difference. If you see guys that are just huge, like Warlord, they're not going to get much movement because there ain't much in the tank.
How was the Ultimate Warrior to wrestle? Speaking of...
I just bumped for him, Hannibal. I just knew to bump for him. I'd tie him up in the ropes and then come to boot. He'd move and I'd take a bump try to keep it going. But I was in the Sportatorium in Dallas when he was the Dingo Warrior. And boy, I seen Bruiser Brody scare the shit out of him.
Well, now you got to tell us that story.
Okay, I know I get your attention. I was waiting. Yeah, and actually, I heard too that now this is what I heard. I heard Rick Rude back down from Brody too. Now that's another story because I wasn't there. I don't know. But uh, uh, Jim, right? Jim, the Dingle Warrior, Brody was in the locker room, and I'm just sitting in the corner, just like I think it was one of my first times there. And Brody just got in his face because I didn't understand these arguments. I just do what I'm told. But he had somehow gotten an ego deal, and Brody just snapped. And he's this far away from him going, I wish I was working with you tonight. I'd beat the shit out of you. And all the Warrior did was, and literally, as far as I know, he got up, packed his bags, and went to New York. That, I don't know if it happened that day, but I'll tell you, it had to be close because he didn't even wrestle his match. He got so fucking scared of Frank. You know, Brody does that to you, and yeah. And I think it was kind of compiling. And then there's another story that the Grappler has that Brody in the Sportatorium had got mad at Tiger Chung Lee and was this far from doing the same shit. Then he chopped him. And Tiger Chung Lee went backward over his chair. And that's a true story because Lenny tells it to me all the time. And but that Dingle Warrior, yeah.
Did you happen to see the Von Erich movie since you were in World Class?
No. How was it?
I did not like it personally, but
well, there you go. I don't think I would have liked it.
Yeah. They made Kevin out to be a saint. They had the guy playing Kevin all jacked, and Kerry was this scrawny little guy. They cut one of the brothers totally out of the movie.
Yeah, it was Hollywood got a hold of it, and they just kind of screwed up what it could have been. I think it could have been really good.
Yeah, and the worst part was they had a Harley Race guy, and the Harley Race guy didn't do the Harley Race voice. That just angered me so badly.
You got to do the guy's parts and the voices, otherwise it's not the characters, you know. Yeah, I agree. Kurt Hennig always loved talking about Harley Race because he was his dad's friend, and so he always had a. I'll tell you, one of the first stories we had, me and Kurt were in 7th grade, maybe 8th, but we're at our lockers, and Kurt tells me, he says, guess who I'm going up to Duluth with? And I said, no. And he goes, Billy Superstar Graham. And I'm going, no shit. He was our man, you know. He was 22-inch arm. And May West looks best on Superstar Billy Graham's chest. Baby, it's going to be Fifth City Knuckle Junction, baby. You know, and we're saying this shit in 7th, 8th grade. And he runs up to Duluth with him. I said, how was it? He said, it was great, but all he kept saying was, a man needed pastries. I have to stop and get some pastries. And yeah, it was just funny. So we were talking, we didn't know if we were talking like Dusty Rhodes or Billy Graham, but somehow we were talking a little bit like both. And wasn't everybody doing that? They must have been.
Yeah, but I think Dusty and Billy were the first to really do it. Yeah. Dusty gets more credit for it because he was the better politician, though.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But yeah, it was so I know Dusty, he had this birthmark on right under his tit, like right here. And it always looked like a coffee stain to me. And I go, hey, Dusty, baby, you got that coffee stain off you yet? He goes, what do you mean, Big Denny? I said, right there. He goes, You're too much. You're too much, Mr. Noy. So the 2 times I worked with him in my life, he gets me in a headlock and he's got my face right on the coffee stand. I said, hey, Big Dutty, could you switch sides? I'm on the coffee stand. So he went like this and got me on the other side. I always thought that was funny.
That is funny. And of course, another guy people copy is Ric Flair. You tag teamed with him.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
Flair just did his fucking corner bump upside down. And yeah, but see, Flair had a very paranoid from the Minnesota guys. When Flair showed up in WWF, he was very paranoid about getting over. I mean, the first day he's there, he's got this kind of one of his robes on, not one of his big fancy ones, but it was one of his robes. He walked by and Wayne Bloom goes, did you just see like an 80-year-old grandma walk by us? And I start laughing so hard. And all of a sudden we hear Flair, I heard that, Bloom. And we were laughing so hard because that was his paranoid, is having the saggy tits and everybody else is all jacked. And then they get this guy in the locker room saying, who's on steroids? And Flair's going, clean as can be. Check me right now. And I says, well, Rick, that's great, but you don't look like you're on steroids. So don't be too proud of being check me, I'm clean. Because you definitely don't look like you're on the gas. But so he was real paranoid about me and Hawk one night in his hotel room. We got the lady with the cart to open up his room. He was downstairs, and under his covers, we put a whole thing of cottage cheese and a turd, and then made it up again. And next day, and that was me and Mike that did it, but next day he's just staring at me. So I know it was you. I said, what the fuck are you talking about? Jeez, things have been weird around here.
Yeah, those kind of ribs just don't happen anymore.
No. And Fuji, the big deal was H-bombing somebody, throwing a Halcyon in their drink, which is very inappropriate. That's like prison time, But Fuji, that was Fuji's deal. He would drop the H-bombs and, he's being cocky. I see, Mr. Fuji. Yeah, so I put H-bomb in his beer. He fall all over, huh? Office hear about it. Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, they used to get people fired that way all the time. Like,
you don't stooge, you don't fuck with the boys, and you don't brag. Like, Charles Wright's one of the nicest guys in the world. I like Charles. He was in Japan, and he was bragging about how much he could drink. Well, Bam Bam H-bombs him, and he ends up, just like in a puddle sleeping in the corner of the lobby of the hotel. And the Japan office is going, is he always this bad? No, you just don't brag. That's all.
Was Jacques Rougeau liked backstage?
Fucking Jacques was just a really good guy. He just had an air about him, though. That just, he would just kind of a little, but he could work. And the Mountie deal, I thought was a good gimmick. But he was paranoid, and he didn't hang out with anybody.
And last question, were you there for the Jim Duggan versus Matt Bourne thing in Mid-South?
No. What happened there?
Supposedly Bourne attacked him or something, and Duggan beat him up.
Well,
and then they had another confrontation about 15 years ago. So they still
Matt
kept
Bourne is just an idiot. I mean, God bless his soul. Listen, I'm not trying to just harass the dead again, but he was just an idiot. And everybody thought he was so tough because I think he was an Oregon State champ or something. And he just wasn't, because what he didn't have in him is when it was time to fucking go, you just fucking go crazy and beat the shit out of the other guy. You don't play around, you know, and he didn't have that. So Jim and I wasn't a big Duggan fan in Mid-South. I thought, fuck, they're pushing this guy, and he's fuck. I don't think he puts any asses in any seats. But then I ended up really respecting Jim and liking Duggan, you know, and he's just a hell of a guy, you know. So, but you know, Watts pushed him beyond belief, you know, and you always hear about the, you know, like Bam Bam being a New Jersey state champ, Duggan being a New York state champ, and you got to check shit like that out, because half the time it's not right even.
That is true. That is
right.
true, especially before the internet, when it was easier to document stuff. I don't even believe the Iron Sheik wrestling stuff, to be perfectly honest
Fuck,
with
the
you.
Iron Sheik was the last guy I was scared of, and he was supposedly, you know, Mr. Olympian, will kill you in a second in a hole. And
but you never hear any stories about him beating anybody up.
No,
he hear stories that he's a bad
he
guy.
He was just so almost I thought he was like a little bit mentally freaking ill. I mean, he was just into himself, and I am this, you know, I mean, he's so into himself that he lost touch of freaking reality, you know. And one of the realities, if someone punches you, you're probably going to fall down, Cheek, you know.
Yeah, and I know that you actually did that once.
I did.
I
did, and I'm not the toughest guy or nothing like that, but you don't go like that to you don't put a guy's shit in a guy's bag. Ha ha, your mommy and daddy divorced.
I think you got to put it a little bit lower.
I'm well. So there, I don't know if you can see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how it is. Now the swelling's gone down all the way, but it's Hannibal. I just wanted to get that out there because I wanted people to see how it's just. I feel like I'm never going to be able to walk good again if they do save the leg, which they think they have. So, but what scares me now is I'm running these low grade temperatures, and you know, that's why, like you mentioned, Portland. Me and Justin will be there for sure, but that very well could be the last show I do. And shit, I better say this to you, Hannibal, too, is now here is a Robinsdale. It's not a leather jacket. This is a Robinsdale jacket.
Oh, that's cool.
Absolutely worn once, and it's heavy duty, nice, and I want to show it, and I'm going to give it to one of my best fans. I just don't know who yet. It's a 3X.
Who could they contact about that?
Burgle Brothers Promotions. And it's the real deal. It's like perfect, and but it's, you know, you start getting old and you want to do shit like that for these fans that have been so loyal to me, you know. It's book Bezerker at yahoo.com. Book Bezerker at yahoo.com. I didn't plan on doing that one, but I just I look at it in my bedroom hanging there, and it's just everybody asks me about it that comes to see me. They go, "That's for Robin." I says, "Yeah," and I says, "I'm going to give it to the right person that really is a huge wrestling fan." So many people have been so damn good to me these last months. It's unbelievable. I'll start crying if I start talking about it.
And for the Portland wrestle thing, it's February 22nd at the Holiday Inn, Portland Airport. I'm probably going to be around for that too, fans, covering it. And
that would be great if you could be. I would.
Yeah, finally
I'll
doing.
give you a free interview over there if you show up.
One of these days, I'm going to get to Minnesota too, but not in the winter because it's cold enough here in the winter.
Yeah, no shit. But the summer's
I gotta ask you, did you ever meet Prince living in Minneapolis? Do you ever run into him?
I never met Prince. Never met Prince. He was he was a local guy, but I mean, he would play like downtown at this First Avenue, I think they call it, and he would be down there playing in the early 80s and all that, late 70s, I guess. And I just never met him. But yeah, I wish I even knew anybody that knew him.
Yeah, that would be cool. Well, fans, I put the book Bezerker at yahoo.com on the website there. I'm sure if anyone wants an autograph or anything from him, his son runs that email. And I'm sure if you want to make an offer on that great piece of memorabilia.
Yeah, a little cashola would be nice, but if everybody's flat ass broke. Now, if you got the cash, then get them alligator arms out, you know. But here it just, and then this side says Robinsdale. And on a 1 to 10 condition, it's 100% a 10. I'd spill milk here or something.
And anyways, what's that picture?
And this is in honor of Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, Tom Zink, Barry Darsow, Scott Simpson, John Nord. This is in honor of them guys too. And it is the only one in existence. So God bless anybody who's a big Minnesota Robinsdale fan. Hannibal, they talked, or somebody talked about doing a show, having a big event in Robinsdale.
That would be cool.
That'd be kind of fun, wouldn't it?
That would be a guaranteed sellout.
Actually point out the houses we grew up in, you know, like Hagstrand lived there. And that's fun. Everybody likes doing that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to come down there one of these days. Definitely, and I'll hang out with you. And I'm good friends with Ken Patera. Do you know Ken too?
Who?
Ken Patera.
Oh, Patera? Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
It's fucking ridiculous. I love Ken. I traveled with him, Hannibal, and all he said, he had already been in the business 25 years. He was totally burnt out, and I'd be driving. I go, how about that check from Byrne, Kenny? Did you get that? And all you do is go, do we got to talk about it? That was it. That was all he ever said. Do we got to talk about it? And he just wanted his booze, you know. And he's funny as hell. He gets real crabby once in a while and all that shit. And then when he was really drinking heavy, he'd get belligerent. And I had him and Ray Stevens at the car lot once, and Ray Stevens, he died like a week later, Ray did. And the last thing he said to me was, yeah, John Bockwinkel would use all these big words. And he asked me if I knew what a paradox was. And I said, yeah, it's a place where I park both my boats. You know, so that's Ray Stevens. He loved saying corny little jokes like that, you know. And then Kenny, of course, was absolutely belligerent on the car lot. We had to actually get him off the car lot. So, but you still love him.
Well, I think he's 82 now and still very sharp. So there's some proof that you can have bad demons and still survive into your 80s.
Very much so. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. He's sharp as hell, uh, and when he was in his prime, he was incredible. Who presses 500 over their head? But that would slice me in two if I had it right here.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure in your day, you could have given him a run for his money. But...
No, tall guys don't necessarily lift a lot, but I could do all that. I mean, I was a good lifter, but my body fell apart quite early, and I always want to tell people like Eric Bischoff, and Eric's kind of a little fucking weasel too, but that's another story. I seen him Thanksgiving Day at the airport going down the escalator this last Thanksgiving. It was a year, and I knew right away it was his. I haven't seen him in years, and I gotta say he got me $150,000 a year, so I can't talk too bad about him. But I noticed it's him right away. I go, "Hey, you little weasel," and he says, he looks back up, and it's me, and I said, "I oughta just fucking punch you." And he's like going by the bags. "Hey, John." Yeah. And he's by the baggage pickup, and he's like getting nervous. He just wants to get his bags and get the fuck away from me.
That's hilarious. You have great stories. Fans, anyone watching this, tweet at the Undertaker, get the Undertaker to have the Berserker on. I think that has to happen. And I think if Undertaker found out he was willing, he would do it. So I hope that happens. We know John Nord's GoFundMe. You can search it up. He's selling stuff at the email we just put up. Is there any way you could finish this off with a little Bezerker promo to close this off?
Well, let me think here.
Or at least a couple husks.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just do that. And by the way, I just want to shout out, and this ain't sucking ass because I'm not a suck ass, but Hannibal, thank you. I always like doing your show. You got a big following and you do good interviews because you let us do the talking. And I'm going to, speaking of us, and don't forget, Burgo Brothers Promotions, baby. That's who watches over me. Hannibal, thank you. And I'm going to just do huss, 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 huss.